I'm a farm boy, and starting with Dante's Cove, that was like, oh my gosh, taking the blinders off to the world and, the big gay world, as it were. And then, going forward with the travel show as well, it was a massive education.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to this episode of Duke's Download. I'm your host, James Duke Mason, and I am truly honored to have someone who I've been a fan of for a very long time as our guest today, Charlie David, actor, writer, director, producer, and the man so many of us fell for as Toby on the groundbreaking LGBTQ horror series Dante's Cove. He's also the creative force behind Border2Border Entertainment, the award-winning comedy series Settle Down, which is now streaming on CBC Gem, and the author of several novels, including his latest, Bless This Hot Mess, which will be out on August 11th. I am so thrilled to have Charlie David on the show today. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh, I'm thrilled that you reached out as well. It's a trip down memory lane when you do a little quick recap of my bio like that, and some fun adventures that I've got to have over the years, and excited to be coming out with this new book, Bless This Hot Mess. I keep having friends ask me, "Is this a biography?" And I'm like, "Guys, no."
Well, from
It's
what I read
fiction, I
about it, there
promise.
are some sort of autobiographical references, right? Or inspiration. Is that correct? Or
There's definitely inspiration, and I think, for all creators, we can't help but be influenced by the world around us and by so many other, wonderful storytellers and artists that have come before us.
yeah.
We actually had friends over for dinner on Sunday night, and we were telling, old tales. We got onto the topic of like, what were some of your jobs like in high school, or like, do you remember your first job? And one of mine was playing the organ at funerals. And so there was a funeral chapel
Wow, you
in
play
my
the
little
organ.
city. I did, yeah, I played the organ and piano and violin, like at
Wow.
church, for in the choir for a long time. But I think I was probably around 14 the first time they asked me to play at a funeral, but they put me in a little closet, and there was just like a mail slot that I could look out of that only gave me a view of the casket. So it was me in the closet looking at a casket through a little mail slot, and I had a green cellophane, over the light, and I would play like Nearer My God to the Year, whatever the request was of the day. But I
And
got
how old,
paid
how old
20
were you
bucks.
when you
I was
when this job?
14. So this
How
is
old?
like 14.
14. Wow.
Yeah. So in
When did you start learning how to
1994.
play instruments? Because I also read that there's a musical element to your new book, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I grew up, being influenced by music. I kind of started music lessons late. I think I was probably in about grade 5 when some teachers at my elementary school went to my parents and said, "Hey, like, get this kid in music class." I was busy being the good Canadian, playing hockey and lacrosse and all that stuff. My parents had that aced, but music was not something in our family. And but thankfully they took that little nudge from the teachers and, got me into piano and organ and then violin and voice and doing all the things. And I wouldn't say I ever got like very good at that stuff, but it certainly filled my joy cup, I would say.
Well, I mean, clearly you're a creative powerhouse. I mean, you played a huge role in my gay coming of age experience. I
What?
mean,
Tell
well,
me.
I mean, I was reflecting on the fact that for my generation, for millennials who grew up gay in the 2000s and 2010s, I mean, Dante's Cove was what's the expression? A cornerstone of gay culture in the 2000s and 2010s. So,
Yeah.
you really start. I mean, obviously, you'd been involved creatively and artistically before that, but I was curious, as someone who's been a longtime fan of yours, like, because I was thinking about the fact Dante's Cove went off the air in what, 2009, I think, somewhere around
I
there.
think that's about right. Yeah, there was kind of it was a tough time in California and the film and TV scene at that time, there was like writer strike. I think DGC was looking to strike.
Mhm.
Sorry, not ACTRA. That's SAG as well. And then there was the economic recession. So it was like
Right.
this, like lots of things going on all at once. And so there was a lot of artists, not working for a long time and on
Right.
the picket line and that kind of thing. But um, on the joyful side of that story, we had a great time making that show. Like, the first season we shot in Turks and Caicos, and then the next two seasons we shot in Hawaii. And,
Oh,
to be part
right.
of something where it was definitely representation of the queer alphabet and allies in the cast. And, Here TV at the time was at the forefront of being a queer network. And, there was Out TV in Canada. And all of
Right.
that stuff was just starting to percolate. And to be part of it was really a cool opportunity. And then your producer and editor, Joshua, uh, we had so much
He
fun
told me some
traipsing
stories
around.
about Hawaii and about how fun it was. But also like I mean I have family who my grandfather was an actor, and there's something from what I gather, there's something about shooting a show or a movie in a remote location and being like away from the world, especially Hawaii. I mean it's gorgeous, but like
Oh,
it's like your own little world. Especially for a show, I imagine, because it's obviously the shoot goes longer than a film. But that
yeah.
must have been a unique experience for you.
It was. I would say it's almost like summer camp, and some of the indie films and productions that we've done as well going forward. I've tried to take some of the lessons that I learned on doing that show about creating a sense of community, of building those
Mhm.
friendships, of building the relationships, having a sense of equality as much as possible through cast and crew,
Right.
because then I feel like people really, are more apt to want to make the thing as best as they can and hopefully be proud of it on the other side and want to talk about it and come on cool people's shows like yours, like talk about whatever it is that they're
You're
doing,
too
as
kind. Thank
opposed
you.
to, be like, oh yeah, I did that thing, but please look the other way. Look over there.
Well, I was
So
curious. I mean, like, how long had you been acting up till when you got cast in Dante's Cove? Was that your first big role, or had you been in the
yeah,
industry for a while?
in ways, I would say that was the first main thing. Some smaller guest spots and other shows. I was kind of simultaneously starting to host television. So
Mhm.
I was doing a show in Canada that had maybe a couple seasons, and then when Dante's Cove started, I was tapped to host Bump, which was a global LGBTQ
Yeah.
travel show, which
Hmm.
was super fun. We did about 6 seasons and over 100 episodes of
Wow.
that, and
And
really got to.
that was concurrently or after Dante's Cove?
It was concurrent, yeah,
Wow.
concurrent, and
You were
then
busy.
continued after.
Wow.
Oh, it was really great, but it was challenging to keep a relationship during that time because most like life was on the road and in airplanes and hotels, and I would
Where did
never get
the
asked.
reality show, where did that shoot?
We did episodes from Japan, throughout southern African countries, much of Europe, South America, Central America, North American cities in,
You
Mexico,
had like zero
Canada, US.
downtime during that period. Great.
Not
And
a
to
lot,
go from
but
Hawaii to Africa to I can't even imagine what that was like. But
oh, it was great. And it's continued. I'm from a relatively unpopulated province in Canada of about 1 million people. I'm a farm boy, and starting with Dante's Cove, that was like, oh my gosh, taking the blinders off to the world and the big gay world, as it were, and then going forward with the travel show as well. It was a massive education, and I'll mention your producer Joshua again, who was such an important mentor for me, who taught me a lot in terms of business, but also in terms of like gay history and where we come from, and who are the, the important touch points in politics and in entertainment, and the folks who really helped us move forward and enjoy so many of the rights and freedoms that we enjoy today. I mentioned earlier that I got married a few years ago, and we just passed the milestone celebration in Canada of,
Right.
it was legalized in 2005.
20 years.
So there was a lot of my, growing up where that wasn't a reality. It wasn't something that might be in my future. And so
Right.
when those things aren't, you just kind of like push it to the side and you think, okay, well, that's not for me, then fine. I don't want that anyway. Right. And
You're right. There's been so much change in like a space of 20 years where like we kind of had our generation experienced some of the hardships of, 10, 20 years ago, what it meant to be gay and all the different obstacles that gay people had to deal with. But we also got a front row seat to history in a way,
mm,
to all these unbelievable moments of both culturally, politically. So I reflect on that sometimes, how like the last 20 years it's been crazy, And
oh
I can
my
imagine for
gosh.
you being like, a person that was and is a significant, figure in the gay community. I can imagine being part of that show too at that time when representation for our community was still so scarce. You played a really important role.
Oh, well, well, thanks. Part of the fabric that we were all weaving at that time, and continue to weave and continue to need to be, you know, aware of what's going on throughout the world, the rights and the movement that we take a few steps forward, and we see the steps, going backward as well. And we need to be aware of that. But yeah, it was a weird time. It was the time when, like, Ellen DeGeneres has her show and then she loses her show. And then, Sir Elton John is like, you know,
Yeah.
really comes out, and like all these,
Hey, he got
all
married,
these,
I think. I don't know why I know this, but I think he got married in 2005, actually. And it just occurred
yeah,
to me that was the year that Brokeback came out too. So
yes, there was a
that
lot
mid
happening.
2000s were, there was a lot going on there.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
I listened the other day to one of your recent episodes, and you were talking about, film festivals and queer film
Mhm.
festivals and their relevance today. And I mean, this kind of harkens to like all queer media, really. And I found it really fascinating. And I did some, reflective thinking about that, because what I've noticed, some of our more recent shows that are a little bit more provocative is, um, some easily find homes and others not. And I think
Yeah.
because many of the streamers have introduced the ad tier,
Mm.
right? So it's a lot lower price point. But I think because it doesn't matter, that catalog is going to be available
Right.
widely no matter what. But when you have an ad tier, suddenly you're introducing a more
Right.
sensitive component to the business structure where,
Mhm.
they might be a little bit more hesitant to show full
Mhm.
frontal or queerness or whatever. So some of those points of friction that we had a decade or more ago are suddenly back, which is kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, now
Well, like,
this is
I don't know if you
reminding me
heard
of
about
another
it when it
time.
happened, but like that show Boots on Netflix, which was a big,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I apparently got a lot of viewership. It was like a successful by all,
Yes.
uh, measurements. It was considered a success, but supposedly because of the whole gays in the military thing, the Trump
Yeah.
administration supposedly put some pressure on them, and Netflix caved. It's like, and you
Yeah.
would think it's like that's something that you would never think would happen in 2025,
No.
2026.
What is that experience like for you? I mean, you're younger than me, you're handsomer than me, you're smarter than me. What what
You're
like
too kind. Thank you.
what is
Uh,
your experience of America right now? And
it's a weird
like,
time because
yeah.
you know, I remember the day that gay marriage was legalized in America. Like, and it felt like this culmination of, not just for me, but like generations before me of, of this. It felt like it was a moment where we finally reached the promised land,
Mm,
and it didn't occur to me that I mean, I probably there are very few people probably that could see what was about to happen, with Trump, and like a year later, basically everything would change. And
hmm
and sometimes I reflect on that and just go like, I think a lot of people didn't realize that just because we saw what 10 or 20 years of consecutive progress didn't mean that that was enshrined for permanently. And so politically, legally, culturally, it's definitely it's scary, lack of a better word. It's a scary time in America. And Canada seems like you guys have it together a little bit more than America's like a total shit show right now.
I
Canada's
mean,
like Canada's solid. You guys have always been solid, you know?
we're close cousins and friends, and I hope that we always will be, and that we can look to each other in times when it is a little bit more challenging, and take inspiration and courage from the other. And
Yeah.
I we have a long history of cooperation and having each other's back, and I think that that will continue. We share way too much in common. We share a massive unprotected border. Let's continue that, please.
Have you always lived in Canada? Did you ever move to the States, or were you always like even when you
Yeah.
traveled for work, you
No,
stayed
I
back
did
home?
live in Los Angeles for about 10 years, between
Oh,
there and
okay.
Vancouver. I would just go back and forth between the two. And
And do you
when the
live, maybe
travel,
I'm getting this wrong, but do you live near Montreal now?
I have,
You have.
but currently Toronto. Yeah, I have an apartment in Montreal, but Toronto is home because my French is passable but not great.
I've heard, the thing is, I've been to
Passable to order
Vancouver.
food.
I've yet to experience Montreal, which I've heard is amazing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Toronto, I've heard is great too. But Vancouver, I loved it there. I mean, there's a certain serenity and serenity that you
Oh,
experience when you go there that's definitely doesn't exist here. It's just, there's
oh. Next time we'll
I,
get you off grid to like Banff or Jasper, and then in
oh,
the mountains, and you'll really feel the serenity. But yeah, please come back. We
I would
love
love that.
having our American friends come and visit, and of course, those are our three most visited cities: Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and they all have a lot to offer for sure.
Well, and obviously it occurred to me too that I'm in Vancouver too, but Toronto is a major entertainment hub and capital, of the world. And so it's kind of fortuitous that being a Canadian, you happen to be in the place too where like, especially increasingly, LA is kind of a ghost town in the terms of the entertainment industry now. Everything is shooting in Vancouver or Toronto. And I know that you've been like a super prolific filmmaker. And did you start Border to Border during Dante's Cove or after the show ended?
It was right towards the end, and I think, again, when I was shooting that show, I was just actively watching, um, the crew and everything that was going on, and everybody was so nice, from, the head of the network, like Paul Kolishman, to, director, and everybody, in terms of being inclusive, right? Where it did feel that kind of like summer camp or family vibes. And so I was inspired to do it myself soon after. I wrote the first movie I ever made, Mulligans, and I bootstrapped it. I didn't do the normal Canadian system of, going through different funding systems and stuff here. I literally held dinner parties across Canada and the US, and would pitch it. I pitch like, here's the movie, here's the business plan, here's why I think we can recoup, here's your, potential profit, etc. And it was challenging because I think I was about 26 or 7 at the
Wow.
time, because I was a horse that people hadn't seen run, not in that capacity, right? Not as a business person, producer, etc. I mean, it was a low budget film, but we managed to pull together a budget and make the thing.
I
And
mean, literally, that is, I've had enough experience in as a aspiring producer to know that that is a almost impossible feat. That even getting one movie made is like, almost next to impossible. So kudos, especially that, what, 26 you said? That's pretty amazing.
yeah, thanks. Well, I've always been blessed with a lot of mentors in life, a lot of people who were open to my curiosity and my aspirations, and have been able to gather a people, like a group of like-minded people who want to make something too. And I always look for those who are looking to step into new roles that they might not have had opportunity to before as well. On a lot of my shows, because there's still, indie and many are low budget, etc. But there's stories that we want to make, that we feel inspired to get out into the world. And so I often call them teaching hospitals, where we have a big crew, but it's like, okay, you might not have been head of wardrobe before, but you've been on our team as an assistant in wardrobe on the last three
Right.
shows. I think you're ready. Do you feel ready? Is that something
Yeah.
you want to do? Or we would do exit surveys at the end of every show, and there's like, what's the positive feedback, what's the negative feedback, opportunities for change and betterment. And I always have a line on the questionnaire, what do you want to do next? Because sometimes I'll find that, like, I just don't know, as the quote unquote boss, that somebody who's a boom actually wants to work in hair and makeup.
Mhm.
But like, I wouldn't necessarily know that
Well, and
story unless
you
we had
trust
time
the
to
people
talk.
that you know, these people, and you've worked with them, and you believe in their ability to step up in whatever role that you trust those individuals to, even if they don't necessarily have the typical experience in a certain department. You believe in them, and so you entrust them with these opportunities, which I think is an amazing thing. You know.
Yeah. Well, and it's also not life or death. We're telling stories, right? We're going to learn along the way. Like, every day is going to have its little challenges and be hard. But I think if you, again, pull together the right group of collaborative and problem solving minded folks, we'll help each other out, right? And creating that
Absolutely.
environment where people feel okay to put up their hand, ask a question, or say, I'm afraid of. It's one of the first things I generally do when I start a project, is just write down, like, what are the top 3 or 5 things that I'm scared of. And once I
Mhm.
write it down, and then I can look at it and go,
Makes it
oh,
less
okay, that's
scary.
solvable. That's solvable. That's actually not that
Yeah.
scary, but we have a tendency to just like swirl in our own, oh my
Mhm.
goodness what ifs.
Absolutely.
And,
Well, I mean, it's
and then
it's
we
it's
just
not, like
start.
I said, it's not easy to get a movie made or a show, especially, that's why, even though obviously the landscape has changed a lot in terms of, the episode of the podcast you alluded to, like, where I was reflecting on being on the board of Outfest and how I used to love how, these not just LGBT film festivals, but just film festivals in general, until like 2013, the only way that, grassroots sort of projects could get any kind of visibility was through festivals. And so
Hmm.
on the one hand, I think it's great that now we have all these different streaming platforms, but in a way there was just something about the organic way that, like, films could get, picked up and gain momentum. I don't know if that, I mean, yes, film festivals still exist, but I feel like that it's a feeling, it's a certain experience going to Outfest, and it
Yes.
kind of doesn't exist anymore, at
Oh,
least not in the same way, you
you know
know?
what that reminded me of, Duke? It's like a movie I went to this past week, The Invite. You've probably heard of
Oh
it,
yeah.
with Olivia Wilde and Seth
Yeah.
Rogen and Penelope Cruz and Edward Norton. And seeing it in the theater with 150 other people, and we laughed and we had such a good time, and it is such a tight script and such a tight show. I mean, it's a remake of a Spanish film that was previously a play. um, but I believe the story is that that was, that Olivia and the team said no to a streamer deal that would have probably been very lucrative and fun at the beginning, to say, no, we really want to have a theater experience
Yeah.
with this. And that movie, which is a dinner party that takes place in one apartment essentially, is not the type of thing that
Yeah.
distributors are putting out in the theater. It's not a Marvel movie, etc. It doesn't have the frothy explosions that they
Right.
think are going to drive people to the theater. But I think so far it's been a success, and I think the team has been glad that they kind of stuck to their guns on that. And for me, as a like a live theater fan as well as the movies, I love going and experiencing it with others, because I think it does something with our with us, like internally on a kind of a biomolecular level,
Mhm.
when our emotions are interacting with others and we feel the freedom to laugh and to clap. And that's what I love about festivals too, is that like there's an appreciation where people often stay through the credits, right? Or they
Mhm.
applaud, and it's like they're acknowledging, oh my goodness, look at all those artists who spent
Right.
time to craft this thing. It's not just
Totally.
the people on the screen that we see. It's, there are so many. And um, so I kind of hope, even in this age, in this age of technology changing things, and I think that many of us are experiencing kind of a longing for the analog and what came
Mhm.
before, and live experiences and face to face. Like, let's go back to the gay bar, and
Yeah.
I think it's a fun time.
How many projects have you made through your production company? Like over the last 15 years? I mean, I was perusing your
Yeah.
IMDb page and I was like, holy, excuse my language, holy shit. Like
Um,
you're like, I don't know how you have the time. Author,
oh,
filmmaker, you've got like a billion things going on all at once, all the time.
well, uh, thanks. I've been, I think, lucky to both, personally generate some of that. And then I also work with others, right? So over the past decade, I've really decided, I think coming after like Dante's Cove and bumping that stuff, it just felt like I was holding the mic and having the spotlight a lot. And it just felt like, I've had a lot of privilege and opportunity and blessings. And so how can I expand the aperture to be more inclusive of other folks, right? And and so that was a really rewarding experience to do that, to be more the producer and have other people writing and directing and that kind of thing. Um, and caveat, I guess now, after doing that for a while, that's kind of what spurred me writing again, though, was that the inner creative, the little child inside was like, hey, cool, but like, when's it my turn to play again? Because growing a business, suddenly I'm doing
Right.
administration, I'm doing financing, I'm doing, HR stuff. It feels like, because you need to open more and more corporations for all these shows. And so it just felt like it's always tax time. It's always, you're going through review engagements or audits or something on one show or another. And it's
Mhm.
just drains the fun, to the point where like the last few shows, I didn't even go to like the studio. And I'm like, okay, this is getting,
You're like
and it
Ryan
felt like,
Murphy, where like he's like,
I mean,
he's
oh, come on,
no, but
nowhere
like
near that, but
no, but in the sense that like, you know, when you get to a point where you have so many different projects going on all at once or whatever, you could only do so much, and I'm sure for you it was like you were
yeah.
doing both the financial stuff, the administrative stuff, where you didn't have as much time to focus on the creative aspects of it as you might have wanted or
Yeah,
liked, you know?
that was it. The path was kind of presenting a fork before me, which was either, okay, continue to build in this way and build a bigger business, but then you're just going to be the business person. And
Right.
I love business and I love finance, and all of that gives me a lot of joy as well. But so does the creative. And so it was like I'm a tree, but I'm only serving half. I'm only fertilizing and watering and sunning one side of it. And so this year just decided to put a little bit of a pause to refocus and refind, a new recalibrate the whole system by fostering my own creativity and spending some time on that. I'm not saying I'm not going to go back and enjoy the business side again, but I needed to just say no to stuff and to others in order to carve out space, because these personal projects kept literally getting pushed to the side of the desk until there was no more room. They just like fall off, and there was never.
If you don't,
You know,
if you
we're
don't
human. There's no
intentionally
time.
make the time, then you're not going to have it. But I mean,
Yeah, that's
also,
it.
I mean, I'm a writer. I mean, I write like, articles, which is a very different thing I know than writing a book. But like how long the new book, Bless This Hot Mess, which comes out August
Yeah.
11th, how long did that take you to work on the new book?
Oh, an embarrassingly long time if I count all of its like previous versions. Um, a funny story though, it started when I was living in LA, so probably like almost 20 years ago, like 15 to
Oh,
20 years
wow.
ago. And a friend and I were working on a biblical television remake kind of story. He was like St. James and I was St. John, or something like this. And the show was okay. I think they let me like keep my earring in, and I probably had like a,
Purple
it
hair? No,
was,
I'm kidding.
yeah.
Kidding. It was,
But
it
the
was,
retellings were,
there were some, anachronistic elements to it.
yes, that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
But we were looking around, and it's my best friend and I, and we're just giggling. Like we cannot stop looking around and just thinking, this is hilarious. We can see the Hollywood sign. We're like in the Hollywood Hills, right? And this thing being made. And it just felt farcical in some way, right? Or there was something plastic about it. And so we started just riffing with each other and joking about different characters. And that was kind of the start of it. We actually wrote a feature script called Jesus, Who's Your Daddy, based kind of starting on those stories, and then put it away for a long time. And then about 4 years ago, during pandemic, my husband and I had rented a cottage, and I would just get up and write every morning, and we'd go snowshoeing or cross country skiing or something in the afternoons, and then come back to it again. And the rewriting was prompted by a TV exec here in Canada who had read the script, loved it, but was like, this should be a series. And like, you should tell the genesis story of these characters. So I wrote it as a TV series, and then looked at the landscape of buyers and was like, this is so weird. I don't know who I can sell this to. And and so then about a year and a half ago decided, okay, I'm just I'm going to fall in love with writing again, because it's something that I've always enjoyed. It's put me at peace, kind of like when I'm playing music or, skateboarding at night so nobody will see me and laugh at me. And, and got in the habit of getting up early, like you said, carving out time in my day to
Mhm.
write. And the best thing I did was one of my sisters said, Charlie, you need an accountability buddy to finish this thing. It's just like going to the gym or starting running again. So, your favorite high school teacher who taught English and drama, why not reach out and see if you can hire him to be your editor?
No way.
So
Wow.
I rang him up. I asked. He was game. And so we just had a shared Google Doc. And I had that
Wow.
feeling of like, I got to hand in my homework, which was my chapter for the week.
Mhm.
And that was the ticket for me, was that accountability buddy, and knowing that my favorite teacher was on the other end, going to be like
That's
looking
pretty
and reading my
awesome.
chapters
Wow.
to finally get me to write the end, so, and it took some time, but that was the magic ticket for me to finish it.
But you were a published author already, right? You'd done,
Yeah.
so you had you had quite a bit of experience in terms of the literary realm, but I can imagine like having a partner to work on a project that makes it a lot easier. I'm sure it's more fun and more. It makes the the feeling of needing to sort of produce and like, move forward on progress on it. It makes it a little more fun to collaborate.
Absolutely. And because Bless This Hot Mess is a comedy, that was my early reader. That was my advanced reader where I got to get a sense of like, is this funny? Or am I just like cracking up at home alone? And I'm like, have other things to air out with my therapist, maybe. And so that was helpful. And you're right, there was an interactive component where I'd get to points in the story and he would be like, oh, you're gonna have a dinner scene where this goes down, right? And I was like, well, I am now. You bet. That'll be next week. And so yeah, it was really fun to craft in that way. And I used the word interactive, and that was the other thing that was kind of fun with this book. Growing up, I loved choose your own adventure. I love to read, just like in general. But a choose your own adventure book was so fun to hold in your hands and go
I
every
remember those.
direction. And of course, go and find out what you didn't do in case there was a
Yeah.
better version, right? And so I wanted to replicate some of those joyful feelings, but in an adult context book. And so
Yeah.
that's what Bless This Hot Mess is. It's a rom-com, but there is a musical element because the heroes of the story are in a band. And so I wanted them to have music. And so it's by no means, it's not a requirement that you use the interactive component, but readers who
Is it like a
want to and find
QR
it fun.
code in the book?
Okay, so that's what I experimented with first with some of my advanced readers, but I found some folks were like reading on their phone. I didn't know like people did
Oh,
like would
yeah.
read a book like this. So then they're like, "Oh, I
Right.
need a second device to like," and I was like, "Okay, so I can't do that." So I simplified it. In the ebook version, it's hyperlinks. So, whether that's on Kobo or Barnes and Noble or Apple or Amazon or any of those places where you get an ebook, it's just a hyperlink to the music. In the like in the physical
Oh,
form, you just get to the end of a chapter and it just says listen, right? Listen to X. There's a playlist at the beginning, and then you can just go and choose to listen to that song if you so wish. So that
and
part
you wrote the
was
songs too?
yeah, yeah.
Wow. It's impressive. It's super, super impressive.
It's been
I mean,
it's been a fun road, and I wanted this to be like a heavenly love bomb to the world and to our community, because in it there's gay and queer relationships. It's set in 1999, which is, at the end of my high school, early college years. But, queerness is not viewed with any apprehension or judgment. And there's also the intersection of faith that's happening as well.
mhm.
Um, and finding that balance was a little bit tricky, because even though I grew up in the church, I'm not a churchy guy now. And so finding the balance between didn't want it to be preachy, I didn't want it to tell anybody to live any which way. Um, but also not to take faith or religion to task at the same time. I wanted to just try find a pathway forward for reflection and kind of, see if this is fertile ground for all of us to have some conversations about how we can build community and have better relationships and be hopefully not only tolerant but respectful and beyond that, like engage with each other, learn from each other, love each other.
Yeah. The world needs that right now,
Right?
for sure. I
Yeah.
cannot wait to read it and listen to it. Seriously.
Oh,
But
thanks, Duke.
August 11th, Bless This Hot Mess. I could go on talking to you for hours. I wanted to talk to you more about the media landscape and the changes in queer representation, but I'm just so thrilled that you came on today, and I can't wait to read the book and listen to the music, and can't wait to hopefully see you in Canada in person soon.
Yes, yes, come for a visit. Thanks for having me
I
on
would love
today.
that.
Really appreciate it. Nice to see
Thank
you.
you, Charlie. Seriously.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you for joining me today on Duke's Download. This podcast is part of Pride House Media, hosted by me, Duke Mason, and produced and edited by Josh Rosenzweig. Original music composed by Nell Balaban. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, leave us a rating and review. It really helps others to discover the show. I'd love to stay connected with you, so join the conversation by following me at James Duke Mason on Instagram and X, or by emailing me at questions@dukesdownload.com.